What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Hey, let's talk hoops. Let's talk. Got the sauce, let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Hey, what's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Hey, let's talk hoops. Let's talk. Got the sauce, let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Hey, what's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Hey, let's talk hoops. Let's talk. Got the sauce, let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Hey, what's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Hey, let's talk hoops. Let's talk. Got the sauce, let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Hey, what's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Hey, let's talk hoops. Let's talk. Got the sauce, let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Let's talk hoops. Hey, what's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Hey, let's talk hoops.
Yo, what's going on, Hoops Tribe? It's episode 2, season 2 of Let's Talk Hoops live. And we're doing this every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Make sure you're sharing. We're going to get into a lot today, but I always have to set the table because I want this to be the foundation of what this Hoops community is built on. And that's communication. And last week I said positive communication, and I want to walk that back a little bit because I want us to communicate productively. And being productive isn't always subjective to a positive or a negative. It just kind of is what it is. So I want us to communicate in a way that's conducive to growth. This week, I'm not going to be able to be in the comment section as much as I was the first episode because I like to think of myself as building the plane as I'm flying. I want to get better every week, and I'm trying to find the best flow for that. So that means the best way for me to give you the highest quality of things. That's how I approach life. Is I want to get 1% better every day. I hope that you all are doing that through the conversations that you have on this channel because I learned so much from you all. A lot of times you guys tell me, Coach C, I'm learning so much from your channel. I'm new to the game. I will always think of myself as a student of the game. I will never tell you all that I'm an expert of basketball. I've been playing the game since I was 6 years old. I've been coaching for 4 years now. And this is still very much so something I'm excited to know more about. And I hope that you all have that same energy. I just want us to feed off of each other. Now, it's been a lot going on this week. We had a lot of preseason fun. I know that a bombshell was dropped on us with the Marta Suarez being waived from the Valkyries. I think the whole situation where they made the trade in general during the draft was the bombshell. So every year it feels like the Valkyries have eyes on them from the beginning because last season it was the Cheyenne Sellers situation. This year is going to be the Marta Suarez Flage situation. And I think the truth of it is they aren't looking to build their roster through the draft. And picking up Flage early was a move that was pre-planned, but it was also to secure them a pick for next season. So they picked up some more draft capital, but right now they feel confident. We have to think about the Valkyries roster from last season. This was a team that could beat anybody in the league. They had to find consistency and build their chemistry, but they were absolutely a team to take note to. You couldn't take that matchup lightly. They gave some of the best good runs throughout the season, and then they made a playoff berth, and they're feeding off of that same thing. There were another franchise that retained their core. So they already have a good thing going. And I think bringing in a big personality or a big time player when you're trying to stabilize could shake things up a bit. And then I want us to trust the GM a little bit more than what we're trusting. Ohima Nien is experienced. And when you see a woman in a director role, in a manager type role, I just want to assume the best that they are highly qualified because when it comes to sports, I feel like the go-to thing is just to put a man in charge. So the fact that a woman is in charge here, I feel like we should be a little more trusting off the rip, especially when our demand is for more women to be in these seats. She comes from the New York Liberty. She's highly credited for the Stewie. Oh, I'm sorry, I lost connection here. Sorry, I lost connection here. Who's tribe? Can you see me? Okay, we're back. I'm not sure what happened just then. Let me check in the chat real quick just to make sure you all can see me. All right, I think we're back. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. But I say that to say that we need to be more trusting of Ohima Nien. She has that experience with the New York Liberty, and New York highly credits her for the move with Jonquel Jones and Stewie. So this is a person that knows how to get people on a roster. I think the Valkyries have a good thing going, and we don't need to necessarily go to the worst scenario in this situation. I think that the Valkyries know what they're doing and they're going to come in stronger than ever. And with preseason moves, we have to talk about preseason games because there's this misconception. I caught a lot of flack this week when I talked about Angel Reese in Atlanta, when I talked about Caitlin Clark and her fit in Indiana and what her role is going to be with them adding in more guards. People think that I'm putting too much emphasis on the preseason. Preseason matters. We would never say that practice doesn't matter. We'd never say that. We know that scrimmages in practice don't count towards a win column, but we know that this is how we establish the rotations. This is how we see what our defense looks like, how much chemistry we already have on offense. So when we're looking at these preseason matchups, we have to look at it like we're looking at it like it's practice. We're looking at it like it's a high value practice and we need to take all of this seriously. So while you might not look at efficiency, you might not look at the field goal percentage of a player, you're very much so looking at how they got their shots, how we ran the offense. What is our baseline of defensive chemistry right now? Because we talk a lot about offensive chemistry, but we don't nearly talk as much about defensive chemistry. And some teams, as we can see, are starting out with a little more chemistry than others. When I'm looking at the Chicago Sky, and they're a franchise that given a lot of flack to. And I think that we're valid in those critiques. They're a layered team to talk about. When you talk about the Chicago Sky, we can't ignore what's happened to players in the past. We can't ignore what we just saw in last season and how they handled Angel Reese, how they handled Gabby Williams. We can't deny Rebecca Allen, who's a role player and was a strong piece for Chicago, and how she just was in an interview and she talked about not truly feeling comfortable. But then we also have to take a look at they still have players on this roster that we like. We still have other players to root for. So we should want their success regardless through all of the murkiness and just the general unclear vibes that we get from this franchise. There are still players, a part of the organization that we want to see succeed. I think that we should want to see Tyler Marsh succeed as a new coach, as someone who's been around the women's game, and as someone who supports the women's game. We look at his staff going back to his first year. He had 3 legendary women on that staff. He had Tanisha Wright, Courtney Paris. He had Rena Wakama. And all of those women are experts in their field, I would say. I think that we're not giving him enough credit for trying to make the players feel as comfortable as possible on the staff. These are vetted women. The people that are around him have experience at being a head coach. He has experience in a winning organization in the WNBA and the NBA. So I think that we need to look at more of the positives. When I see his coaching staff today, even with Courtney Paris and Tanisha Wright moving on, he still has a strong staff. Latricia Trammell, Kelly Ferris. We know what Latricia Trammell is capable of as a head coach in the WNBA. We know she specializes in defense. Kelly Ferris comes from UConn. She was a player at UConn. She's played with Brianna Stewart, Kia Stokes, Maya Moore. She played with Maya Moore. So when we think about who he has around him and the people that he's listening to, he has people that know the game around him. I think they're genuinely taking strides to be a team that strings some wins together this season. I think that Chicago can win. In one of my midweek conversations, I talked about how I think they need a post that's a little more agile. And I spoke to a Dominique Malonga. What was I thinking? I completely forgot that Azurá Stevens is on the roster. And it was just released that she's resumed activities with the team. So we can anticipate her playing pretty soon. And she's a post that's agile. She's quick on her feet. She's quick in that screen and roll type of action. And she's used to that with the Los Angeles Sparks. She also has chemistry with Latricia Trammell because Latricia Trammell spent a season with the Sparks. She has chemistry with Rickea Jackson because they both played together at the Sparks. So I think what they're going to be able to do with Azurá Stevens on the floor gives them a high level look to their offense. They want to move the ball. They want to get looks on the perimeter, but they also want to get players that can drive off of the perimeter. I think they have a strong core when it comes to those general facts. But my question has been, how does Camila Cardoso fit into all of this? It's like Camila still has a gap in her development because of the pace that Chicago wants to play at. That was a fast moving offense. We know that the offense moves faster when the ball is moving faster, when the passes are quicker. And it felt like she was a step behind. So I'm interested to see what type of growth Camila can do this season so that she continues to fit into the Chicago system, or if they look to make a trade for some more capital, they could get another wing player. They could try to get another post player. What is it going to look like as we continue to look at the season from a zoomed out lens, a win now lens? I'm curious. And I spoke about Tanisha Wright being on the staff of the Chicago Sky. Tanisha Wright is now the head coach at Penn State. I want to talk about college just a little bit because that's something that we should be celebrating. So I'm going to talk about it every chance that I get. I don't know if you know, but Tanisha Wright is now the head coach at Penn State. She played at Penn State. It's considered a legend there. And now she's bringing that winning pedigree that she brought to Atlanta. She got Atlanta back into the winning conversation. They won the most games under Tanisha Wright than they had since 2018. So a lot of that Atlanta hype that we're getting right now, that excitement that we have about Atlanta being a winning team, that excitement that we have about Ron Howard and Alicia Gray, that started with Tanisha Wright. So now she's bringing that back to her alma mater, and she's looking to make them contenders, bring them back into that winning conversation. And I think that players should want to play for a coach who has doors to the WNBA. This is a coach who played with some of the best. She's won a championship with Seattle. She's coached some of the best. She's worked as a head coach and an assistant coach. She's had time to step back in that assistant role. So I think that gives you another perspective as well. So I'm just interested to see what Penn State does in the next couple of years, because it's unfair to think everyone is going to have that Becky Hammon of impact where they win a championship right off the rip. I think that it's going to take time for Tanisha Wright to grow that Penn State program, but I absolutely think that she can do it. And I just want to shout out the fact that she has that opportunity. Now, I also want to talk about HVL because I watched her in a presser and she talked about feeling sped up in her rookie season. and now she's feeling like she has a better flow to the game. HVL is looking so strong right now. People want to talk about her fourth quarter in one of the preseason games. Yeah. That is a part of conditioning because players look different as the game progresses based on their conditioning level. And it's hard to get in game shape when you're not playing games. You just have to play games to get more in shape. I think that HVL looks really strong. She has a leadership mindset. She can come in and settle the offense when Skylar needs to take a break. When Courtney Vandersloot comes back and she needs to take a break, I think that she can hold it down until Courtney Vandersloot comes back. So I think that we should pay attention to what HVL does this season. And I hope that what it's looking like is we're going to get a lot of growth from year one to year two, because she said that she's going to be able to apply what she's learned from year one to year two. And I'm excited to see that in motion. Now, when we talk about younger players coming in and making an impact, I want to talk about Cam Brink, because there's been this conversation that she's going to come off the bench. And she was the number 2 draft pick, like Camila Cardoso, and high expectations when you go high in the draft, right? I mean, that's just common sense. But I think that Cam Brink coming off of the bench isn't a big deal. Like, look who's on the Sparks roster. She's on the roster with Nneka Ogwumike and De'Erica Hamby. I would bring her off of the bench too. That makes total sense. I think that it's even better for it to happen that way. I think several years ago, if a rookie came off of the bench or a second-year player came off of the bench, it wouldn't be a big deal. But I think these last few draft classes have been so popular, has so much star power, that we just want the most from them when it don't really work like that. I think that this is a great progression. I think that when you get the chance to see the game from the bench, when you get a chance to get reps in practice against the best of the best, which is what she's going to be doing with De'Erica Hamby and Nneka Ogwumike, it puts you in a better position when you have to get in the game. You know, it just is the progression that I would like to have. I feel like it's less anxiety driven to do it that way. So I don't know why people are making a big deal out of this. It comes to one of my most unpopular takes where people are still kind of hounding me about, is when I make the assertion that if Angel Reese was drafted to a team that had more dominant bigs, she wouldn't have been a starter. And I gave examples like the Aces, Seattle, Liberty specifically. And we can see it happened with Seattle just last season when they brought in Dominique Malonga and she came off the bench, and then she was very impactful at the end of the season. While Angel Reese was impactful, and she has been impactful since her inception into the league, I think that it would have been a different narrative around her name had she been able to make that impact off of the bench. And that's not a knock to her talent. I appreciate how she's been able to step up and dominate in this way. So it's not to say that being off the bench is a bad thing. I don't want to ever get that misconstrued. Coming off the bench is just another strategy to the game. And every team has their strategies to the game. Do they want to continue their fierceness and their dominance coming off the bench? Then they might bring a player like Kennedy Carter off the bench. They might bring a player like Angel Reese off the bench because they're already stacked in their starting 5. So when we're talking about strategies to the game, it brings me to another conversation that we've been having this week about free throws. Free throws. I never thought that free throws would be such a bad thing. We saw a lot of that energy when Bam got his 83 points, and they're talking about how many other points were free throws. We just saw it in the women's game with Caitlin Clark, and people wanting to discredit her 20-point game versus Dallas, where she scored maybe more than half of her points from the free throw line. I think that there's a large group of people that are supporting that and making excuses for that. But those same people had issues when Angel Reese got her buckets the same way last season or the season before that, because Angel Reese has been a free throw attempt leader for the past 2 seasons. She's been top 5. So there's always been that asterisk by how many points she's averaging because of how many she gets from the line. Caitlin Clark just did the same thing, and now it's kind of reversed. People are defending it, whatever. Can we just stop? Can we stop? Because getting to the free throw line is very much so a strategy in the game. If you can get to the free throw line, get to the free throw line. If you know that you have a higher chance of missing this shot going to the cup because the defensive player has an advantage, whether it be height, whether it just be position, get to the free throw line. Now, what also enters the conversation is how the referees are calling it. I think that we saw in that preseason game that the referees were a little bit happy with the whistle. Are we going to get that throughout the whole season? Is that going to create more free throw merchants? Where does ethical hoops come in all this? And ethical hoops, if you don't know, is this concept where people appreciate players that don't have to manipulate the rules and don't have to look for fouls in order to score. They're playing off true skill. I'm here to say that is a myth and just some internet person or some old head being upset at where the game is now. And I think that it's always been a matter of you do what you can get away with. You do what you get away with. And whether that is morally wrong or whatever have you, that's subjective to the person. But basketball has always been in a place where you do what works. And if getting to the free throw line works for you, then by all means, get to the free throw line. I just had to get that off because it's been tiring seeing this conversation be had in my comment section. And I also talked about Angel Reese's impact with Atlanta this week. And I talked about her efficiency and if she's going to be what Atlanta needs to win a championship. Because every time I'm talking about winning, I'm talking about winning a championship. I feel like she's very much so going to help Atlanta win games. I'm wondering what it's going to look like in a championship because I felt that Atlanta needed a more impactful big to help Breonna Jones. I think that Naz Hillman is becoming a scorer, but I don't know if offense is her second nature. I know that she's a player that can get it off the glass for you. She can hustle. Now she's learning to stretch the floor. But I was looking for someone to really be impactful on just that natural offensive ability. I think that Angel has a natural offensive ability, but there's still more to be worked on because when we're looking at efficiency numbers in just the top 20 in bigs, she's not there yet. She's averaging 45% field goal percentages as of last season, and that's a big growth spurt from her rookie season. So she's had a lot of growth from 39% in her rookie season to 45% here in her second season. I'm expecting her to continue to trend upward, but I wonder what is that going to mean for Atlanta? Now, maybe Atlanta changes their game a little bit, and now she's more of a facilitator. And now instead of worrying about her scoring and taking as many shots, she's distracting the defense so she can get better looks for Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard. I think that this is an opportunity for her to grow that facilitation piece that she started in Chicago. So I think that Atlanta has some more games for me to watch in order to feel confident that they can contend for a championship. I know when they first got the news, I was super excited, but then I was like, wait, Bree Jones is going to be out for a while with that meniscus injury. And it takes time to come back from meniscus. So realistically, we might be looking at several weeks before Bree Jones is back into the offense. When she comes back, how well conditioned is she going to be? Is she going to be able to keep the pace? How impactful is she going to be towards the end of the season? Those are things that I think about. And I feel like Angel Reese is going to help. I'm just interested in how and what kind of game plan Atlanta goes to with her in the lineup. And we might see more, even though they play today, right after this, might I add. So this is like your pre-show to that preseason wrap-up. But the starters are only going to play 12 to 15 minutes based on what Carl Smith goes. So we won't see a lot, but we'll see some. And I'm interested to see what that game plan looks like. Now, a player or a team rather, that I have always been interested in, but this media availability, this preseason feels different. I feel like the Aces feel so confident right now. And with that confidence, you're going to get higher level play. The more comfortable a player is, the more confident they are, the more the game slows down. And that player, they have a few players I feel like is going to be that for, especially Kennedy Carter, who's getting another shot in the WNBA. I feel like Kennedy has gotten even better than she was when she played in Chicago. And she's in an environment that's ready to see her grow, that took a chance on her. They're an environment with not just leaders, but leaders who have accomplished things. Because with some people, the advice that you get always depends on the messenger. So when you're getting a message from Asia Wilson, you're going to listen. Asia Wilson is an accomplished player. She's someone you respect. Even as good as Kennedy Carter is, Asia Wilson is better. Asia Wilson has the championships. She has the titles, the awards. So this is a player you're going to listen to. So I think we're going to get great things from Kennedy Carter. This could be the ultimate redemption story. We've seen Kennedy Carter get labeled for something that happened very early on in her career, and it followed her. And we see this happen often. We saw it happen with Betty Lennox, who played in the early 2000s, was drafted to the Minnesota Lynx. She got a hip injury. During that time, she had to change positions because she wasn't as dynamic as she was in her rookie season, where she won the Rookie of the Year. So this is a dynamic player who's having to make a change, like become a shooting guard when she was a point guard. That caused a clash with the coach, and they ended up trading her. From that moment on, she was looked at as a problematic person. She clashed with the coach, she got suspended, and then she got traded. This is an uncoachable player. And it followed her until someone in Seattle wanted to take a chance on her because they knew that she was misunderstood, or they knew that they could handle it. They knew that they could deal with its personality, because really it's all about how the personalities fit in together. Because what's difficult for you might not be difficult for me. All the things that happened might have been true, but there's someone who can deal with it. So in Betty Lennox's case, it was Seattle, and she goes on to win a championship. And now she's gone on to do great philanthropic work, completely turned her story around. I think that that kind of future is possible for Kennedy Carter. I know it's very early on, and we still have things that have to happen throughout the season. But I just have a good feeling about her in this Aces environment, because the Aces have cultivated such a community. And they're being led by the best. I don't think we give Nikki Fargas enough credit as their president. She's well qualified, went to the University of Tennessee, played under Pat Summitt. This is a woman that knows the game. She's also been a head coach. Her in a duo with Becky Hammon, we know what she can do. It goes unsaid. This is an environment of harmony. This is an environment for winning. And I'm excited to see this redemption story. I was skeptical at first. I'm not going to lie to you. I was skeptical. Oh, Kennedy Carter is coming to the Aces, because I'm guilty of feeding into narratives. I think that there comes a time in our lives where all of us are guilty of feeding into a narrative and taking things at face value without looking at the bigger picture, without looking at things more in depth. But now, after just really sitting on it, listening to everybody talk, and just understanding history and how people can be mislabeled, especially minorities, especially women, especially Black women, having a little more grace and being a little more open-minded. So I'm excited for Kennedy Carter. I'm also excited for NaLyssa Smith. NaLyssa Smith is better than ever. And I had a back and forth earlier in the week about this, because people don't know if they've seen a change in NaLyssa Smith because she's in a environment where the players are dominant. I'm going to tell you right now, it is not easy to stand next to Asia Wilson. If you're not great and you're standing next to greatness, it's going to stick out like a store thumb. If you're not also great, you won't be able to stand next to someone who is great, period. So there's a lot to be said about Asia Wilson's teammate. We can look at what the Aces tried to do last season. They tried to fill that post void with Crystal Bradford. It didn't work out. When they only had Kia Stokes and Meg Gustafson, they weren't able to get past the New York Liberty. They tried things before NaLyssa Smith to fill the void that NaLyssa Smith is now occupying. And they weren't able to be successful in those moments. And now that NaLyssa Smith has joined the team, Asia Wilson's production has gone up. And they win a championship. We look at NaLyssa Smith in Indiana. She has some strong numbers in Indiana. But unless you're in the tournament, unless you're trying to play for a championship, which she only did one season, while she was there, Indiana only made the playoffs one season. In that series, she averaged 6.5 minutes. So she didn't have a strong role in Indiana when it mattered. And then she gets traded to Dallas, where it's helter-skelter. She doesn't have a big role, and she doesn't impact winning. And then she comes to Vegas. She has a fresh start, a stronger mindset. She understands that she has to work harder. When you listen to her talk, she's talking about she's in the best shape of her life. She leveled up because she knew she had to compete on the same court as Asia Wilson. I'm telling you, it's not easy to stand next to Beyonce. Beyonce is revered as the lead singer of Destiny's Child, but Kelly Rowland and Michelle were great in their own right. And they had to be in order to stand next to Beyonce and blend in, okay? We talk about these things like it's easy because it's easy to just sit back and watch these games. But you don't know. You don't know what it takes. And it takes a lot. So the Aces and their confidence is something that I'm really looking forward to. I'm also really looking forward to all of these rookies. These rookies have come in with such an audacity. And when I talk about audacity in basketball, I mean, they came in and they're doing the same things that they did in college now on the pro level. They didn't miss a beat. In fact, they're leveling up. And when I say that, I'm thinking specifically about Raven Johnson. I'm thinking about Flau'jae Johnson, Cody McMahon, Olivia Miles. Thus far, those have been the most audacious of rookies who have come in with a level of fearlessness. The level of play that Flau'jae has been getting off in these preseason games is not surprising if you watched her through her college career. Her offensive ceiling is so high. And we don't talk about how she's able to manipulate in the air enough. In this Seattle system, she's going to be a star. We look at Cody McMahon. I think she's going to be more impactful as a pro than she ever was. Getting that experience in Ole Miss and being able to play at point, and then she was a post in Ohio State. I think she's really more in the middle. She's really more of a wing. So now she has the things in her tool belt for a guard, and she has the aggression of a post. This is a dangerous player, and she's fearless. I'm talking about she's clapping. She locked up Courtney Williams. I think that it is a lot to be said about being able to defend on the highest level too. Like, yes, it is impressive to score at the highest level, but to also be able to defend. And I think out of those players that I listed, Cody McMahon and Raven Johnson have been able to show their fearlessness on both sides of the ball. And I'm most impressed by them. And then Olivia Miles, who is probably giving Cheryl Reeve headaches, who might be one of the biggest catalysts for growth Shell Reeve has seen in a while, because Olivia Miles just has all of this energy. She's taking risk in a system that likes as much perfection as possible. I think she just likes, Coach Reeve likes like just straight on basketball, but now she's gonna have to learn to be a little more lenient for players and their creativity. I love what Olivia Miles is coming in with. I love the connection already between her and Courtney Williams, because now Courtney can play a little bit off the ball. And that's where she's a natural with. So Courtney Williams has gone a couple of seasons now where she's been a primary ball handler. She's had to get these PG skills in her tool belt, but now she can go back to her more natural position as a shooting guard a bit, because Olivia Miles is going to take on that primary ball handler duty. And I think that the pace that Olivia Miles can play, as she's so fast, is going to really speed up the Lynx' offense. And with more reps, I think their offense is going to start to look better. Just little timing things that were off. The biggest thing for the Lynx is going to be their defense. They are going to have to find the chemistry on defense to get stops, especially without NaLyssa Collier. And I think that when a big anchor to your defense is missing, like NaLyssa Collier, it gives the players opportunities to really step up and to really gain that chemistry that they need to communicate. Defense is so much communication, whether it be verbal or gestures, getting on the same page so we're moving in sync, so our covers aren't slipping, is so important. And they have to find that. And if they can find it without NaLyssa Collier and then add her into it, it's going to make them such a better team. So this could actually work out to their advantage. I have to see more games to know where this puts the Lynx. Are they going to compete in the playoffs? How does NaLyssa Collier come back? It's just interesting. And I want to continue on with Raven Johnson and the Indiana Fever, because the Fever have wrapped up their preseason at this point. And with that, we've seen some different looks out of their offense and their defense. When it comes to their defense, I'm just glad Aaliyah Boston is going to be back to start the season, because I thought that Raven was the only one out there playing defense at one point during that Dallas preseason matchup. And she's just bringing in that South Carolina pedigree. She knows how to defend 94 feet. She knows how to defend post players. I was so excited to see Raven deny a post player a ball on the WNBA level. It's not, it just validates what we already knew. Like, this is for real. Like, Shorty can defend. For real. And what I love that I saw in that Nigeria matchup is that they moved Caitlin Clark off the ball, and you see it more in their half court sets. Caitlin Clark is definitely going to be that primary ball handler when it comes to their transition offense. But when it comes to their set, that you started to see more looks with Raven, with Ty. Both of those guards are able to push the pace. And I think it helps their half-court set, and it makes them less dependent on Clark. Now, if she can keep up this level of efficiency that she started out this preseason with, they're going to be good for it. It's like the less responsibility that she has, the better they're going to be as a team, because when she starts to stay on ball too much, they just become too predictable. They're still working through chemistry on both sides of the ball. It's going to take some time to build that defensive chemistry. I don't really know where Myisha Hines-Allen fits into all of this. I think that when it comes to winning some games, like, yes, Myisha Hines-Allen can help you win some games, but I'm talking about being championship contenders. And in the grand scheme of things, the best teams have strong posts. And she's a little small. She's going to bring you those hustle points. She's going to bring you some rebounds, but she can also bring you some fouls. She can be a bit over-aggressive at times. She doesn't really bring you a lot of point production unless she's getting it off the glass. So I'm just interested to see how that continues to work, because in general, the Indiana Fever are a small team, but I can see what they're working towards. They're starting to make sense, and I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the offense. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Michaela Timpson. She's looking so much more confident this season, and I'm excited. I'm excited about it. And it's like I feel a little ashamed to say it because it's the Indiana Fever. It's a team that I love to boo. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that we have to have a come to Jesus right now, Hoops Tribe. Because a lot of you guys get so sensitive about or so defensive about people not liking players. We're not going to like players. We're not going to like people. And you're like, "Well, you don't even know them." There's a lot of people in your regular life, if you're just real about stuff and you just think about your own life, you think about maybe you're at work. There's a person you don't really know them like that. You have to deal with them. You have to keep it real at work. You don't really like them. They haven't. You don't know much about them. You only talk to them a couple of times. You listen to them talk to other people. You have made the decision that you don't really like them, and that's okay because everybody ain't for everything. Everything ain't for everybody. And for me, I didn't like the Indiana Fever until Raven Johnson came along. It's just my preference. I think they're whiny. I don't like the now we talk about ethical hoops. I don't like unnecessary unnecessary flopping. That is annoying to me. Like I know it's a tactic, but me personally, I don't enjoy that type of basketball. I think Caitlin Clark does a lot of flopping. She does a lot of whining. I think AB does the same thing, and she gets away with a lot of things. A lot of things go under the radar with the way that AB plays, and that's just not my preference of player. So I don't like the Indiana Fever. That's just me. But it doesn't take away the fact that I'm still looking at the game as someone who knows the game. And I'm still giving my opinion based off of what I feel about basketball. I'm not trying to force anybody to change their mind about anything. I just want to have a conversation about basketball. And we've gotten to a point in society where we feel like the stars are beyond reproach. Like they cannot be critiqued because they're great. Great people are great because they critique. They critique themselves and they listen. And when you go into a meeting for a coaching staff, the head coach is listening to a lot of different opinions. That's why there are so many people on a basketball staff because you want different opinions. You want different opinions on your staff because if we're all thinking the same thing, how are we going to get better? We're not taking in any outside perspective. So I appreciate conversation. I say all that to say, like, do you? I'm not trying to impose on you. I don't want any of us to try to impose on each other. I just want us to just talk about the game and grow from it. Now, I asked a question on Facebook. I asked it on Threads. How do you define winning? That's one of the questions for the day. And I think that when we're looking at the game, we want to look at the small wins and we want to look at the larger picture, the big wins, the literal things. We have to take the moral wins, the philosophical wins, and then we got to take what's on the stat sheet and what's a win there. And I think small wins is that 1% every day. That's okay. I might not have gotten the win today, but we felt better as a team. There was a lot of laughing in the locker room. We built some chemistry here. How do we respond to this loss? This shows our character. I think we're in a good place from a character standpoint. I think that at the end of the season, if it doesn't result in a championship, a win would be we made better leaders. We really saw our leadership shine here. Of course, we want to win in a way that results into actual wins in the stat sheet, actual trophies on the shelf. But we have to take the small wins. So I'm asking you, this is a question to take into your week. How do you define winning? How are you setting yourself up to be a winner? It's a question for the week. Something else I want to talk about, and it's another question to think about as we move through this season, is the WNBA growing at the appropriate rate? Because we look at there's going to be more expansion teams coming from now to 2030, but the roster size is still relatively the same. Like, yes, we added on those 2 developmental spots, but the amount of players that are still not on a roster because of cap space and because of roster size is still appalling. We still are looking for Tina Charles to join a team. Tina Charles still has a lot of basketball left in her, and I think that she could be beneficial to a few different franchises. But it may be a matter of cap space, it may be a matter of roster space. Then we look at Natasha Cloud, still not on a roster. I'm not going to act like I know if it's because of her activism or not. Historically, the WNBA has been an activist league. So I don't want to assume that they're shutting her out because of her political views, because that is what the WNBA stands for. I'm going to say it goes back to roster size and cap. So if we want to see a better quality game, we want teams to have more players on the roster. So players like Tina Charles and Natasha Cloud don't get left off, but also so there's not so much to learn. There's not such a gap when you try to hire on these, bring on these hardship contracts, because during the season, we always see a slew of injuries. I mean, I'm going to knock on wood. May this be the most injury-free season, but statistics show us that WNBA players are getting hurt at higher rates throughout the games than NBA players. They have smaller rosters. So when you bring in a hardship contract, you're going to have to teach a new player your whole system. They're going to have to learn the whole environment of your team, the vibe of your team. They're going to have to learn so much, and you're still trying to win. If we just had larger rosters, then we wouldn't have to worry about so many hardship contracts and players having to uproot their life. We saw players on hardship contracts last season bounce around to multiple different teams. That is so much. Like, people are having to worry about where they're living, travel expenses, setting up their just day-to-day life in a whole new city when they could have just been on this team from the start. So the question that we ask, is the WNBA growing at an appropriate rate? Personally, I don't know if we need to add any more teams to the league until we're able to increase the roster size. And then if we keep increasing the teams, then the quality is naturally going to go down, because for years, it took a lot to get in the WNBA, and there's a certain level of play you got to play to. I still think that there's a gap in development in the women's game in general when we're talking about from a youth sports standpoint. I think that there's a gap in between women's development from high school to college, and then there's that gap from college to the pros. It's also about assets at the youth level. We're getting rid of the foundation pieces, which are rec leagues, and we're trading that for AAU teams. And with AAU teams, you don't get the same level of development. And it was already a big difference from boys development and boys teams and girls teams. There's not a lot of coaches. So we have to think about all of that when we're talking about growing the game. And I think being realistic about that growth. But I'm still excited for all of the new teams to join. I'm excited for Connecticut to go to Houston, even though it's sad for the people in Connecticut who are going to absolutely miss the sun. And then knowing that Connecticut is such a pillar in the basketball world with the Huskies, and them no longer having a pro team, it's going to kind of be weird. I'm sure that's going to be weird for the people in stores, but it's going to be exciting to have Connecticut in Houston. I'm excited about that Philly team. There's been some chatter, just some internet whispers. I don't know if Dawn Staley is considering it or not, but the chance that Dawn could come in as a WNBA head coach. I know that in the past that she says that she enjoys being at the college level to mold players into reaching that point, but it'll be interesting to see. And while I'm talking about Dawn, I just want to highlight the fact that there have been so many coaches and players at this point to talk about how Gamecock players come into the WNBA, how they come in pro ready. And the fact that Dawn is getting that credit, South Carolina is getting that credit for making pro ready athletes, is just something that we have to continue to shout and celebrate when we see it happen, so we can continue to put women in these positions to be great. Now, I just want to circle back to the preseason because we got a couple of games today. And I just want you to go into these last games with the mindset that these games mean something. I want you to put on your couch coach, your couch coach shirt and your couch coach hat. And we're going to look at these games with a new perspective. If you weren't already looking at it this way, look at it like you would look at any other game. Judge this team. You got to judge. You have to critique things in order for it to get better, in order to see the bigger picture. I promise you that I'm doing this for these shows that I'm putting out for y'all. I'm critiquing myself. I don't critique anybody. I'm talking about a lot of different people, a lot of different programs, a lot of different franchises, and I critique hard, and people criticize me for that. But I guarantee you, I'm critiquing myself even harder. I'm constantly asking the question of, how am I getting better in this? How am I becoming a better public speaker? How am I becoming a better ball knower? And I want to increase my quality. I hope you increase your knowledge of the game as well, because that is what community is about. Okay. The preseason matters. So when we watch these games today, we're going to get a look at Atlanta. We're going to get a look at Washington. We're going to get a look at the Sparks. I'm very interested in the Sparks because I haven't seen NaLyssa, and I missed that first preseason game that the Sparks played. The Sparks GM has talked about wanting a new defensive identity, and that being the driver in that Ariel Atkins move. And the GM with the Sparks is analytically driven. And she thinks that Ariel Atkins is going to be what they need to improve their defense. Of course, Nneka Ogwumike is going to do that as well. So we're going to see. We're going to see how that comes together. We're going to see how NaLyssa grows in the league. I think she has a great mentor in Kelsey Plum, probably the best she could have gotten, all things considered. Like size-wise, being a prolific scorer and having another prolific scorer as your mentor is just... It's so great going into your rookie season. So I'm interested to see what she learns in that relationship, how this Los Angeles Sparks offense moves with Nneka Ogwumike. They're a three-point driven team. Nneka Ogwumike can step out beyond the perimeter. She can also bang in the post. It's all exciting. Now, I'm going to check the chat out. I haven't been able to check it throughout the show. I appreciate everybody for tapping in the chat. Everybody tapping in on YouTube as well as Facebook. Yeah, we back. I didn't realize my volume was low. I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna try to fix that for the next time. I hope it didn't stay low throughout the entire show. Now, what was something that you saw in preseason that you really enjoyed about your favorite team? I want to see those thoughts in the comments. What is something that you saw from one of your favorite teams in the preseason that you enjoyed, that you want them to take into the regular season? And the regular season starts May 9th. Like, we're getting into regular season hoops really quickly. I'm excited. To me, this year is going to be one of the best years for the WNBA, for women's basketball. We're just getting so much elite play. I'm also interested in tanking in the WNBA. Is that going to become a thing? Because we know that these women are winners. They want to win and they want to compete night in and night out. And I see a lot of people talking about tank for Juju. Are teams really thinking about tanking right now, or do they just want to be the best that they can be? And if they end up losing, if that ends up being what happens, that's just what happens. But are they purposely trying to tank like what we see happen in the NBA? I'm curious to see what that looks like as the league continues to grow. And before we get up out of here, I know that we only have about 5 minutes left, and then we're going to change over to watch Washington versus Atlanta and that preseason wrap up. I want us to highlight how we're having to come at the women's game in a different way from a media standpoint and from a viewership fan standpoint. I think the players are demanding it. I think fans are also demanding it because for so long we've only had men's sports. So men's sports has been the standard. But the women are showing us that they're not gonna let the same thing fly. You're not gonna get to ask us certain questions. We saw with the AZ Fudd and Paige Becker situation, Dallas said, I'm gonna stop you right there. You're not even about to get these questions off. Even though Paige and AZ have been public with their relationship, at least over the last year, that doesn't give you the right to ask them about their relationship. They're letting us know right now that they're focused on basketball, even though the expectation, if something is going on that could impact the team in the men's sports world, media will be able to ask about it night in and night out, and players will have to answer the question. The women are letting you know right now, I'm going to stop you right there. Y'all not about to do this because we've been playing as a couple for a while. Y'all know that now, and nothing has changed. We've been professional. We're going to keep it that way. It's a moot point. We ain't going to talk about it. So with being a WNBA fan, what do you see as the differences in being a fan of the WNBA and possibly being a fan of another sport? Do you see some intersectionality there? Do you think that there are things that are toxic about WNBA fandom that you would like to see changed or improved? But I thought that was interesting, the tone that's being set for women's sports and all of the discourse that has been had by so many people online that I've just observed. Because if you see me not talking about a particular topic, it could be I don't feel educated enough to talk about it. I just want to listen to all sides for a little bit to see, to really gauge what all this is about. Do I even have an opinion on this? I don't have to give an opinion on every single thing. So I'm interested. I've been interested to see people's thoughts about that. I'm interested to see the conversation continue because it helps me. Because y'all respond. If y'all don't like the way that I talked about certain things, y'all definitely bring it up. And it's something to consider. It doesn't mean I'm going to change the way that I approached it, but it's something to think about. It's something to consider. And I respect the women for having that audacity to just say what it is they believe in, say what they want, and set the tone for the type of life they want to live. I think we're seeing in real time the change in how women handle business and how people approach women in business. And it's been a joy to watch because it's only going to lead to better things in other areas of life for all women, because ball is life and there's so many parallels in all of this. So as we wrap up, I want us to think about those questions. How do you define winning? Is the WNBA growing at the appropriate rate? And how are you approaching WNBA fandom? Do you see intersectionality between WNBA fandom and men's sports? What could change about WNBA fandom that you think is a little toxic? Some strong questions moving in to next week. Next week, we're going to evaluate the final preseason games. And then we're also going to look at what they look like on the opening night of the regular season, because it's May 9th. So we'll have some regular season play before we meet again. And we do this every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern time. I'm streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. And you're also going to get the playback. So if you miss it at 2 p.m., you're in church or you just have your Sunday rituals that you can't watch this show, you can always get the playback. I appreciate everybody for tapping in for 2 weeks in a row. If you're back from last week, I appreciate it so much. I want to continue to grow the conversations. I want to continue to get better. So if you have any feedback, be sure to leave that in the comment section. Hopefully you saw some growth between episode 1 and episode 2 here today. And I hope you have a great week. I hope you have productive conversation. Don't feed into the trolls. Don't feed the troll, Hoops Tribe. And it's easier said than done. I find myself having to log off because I'm not going to keep defending my character with people who never want to see me for who I truly am anyway. I'm not going to keep defending my perspective because I'm allowed to have that perspective. And I find myself doing that sometimes, and I have to take a step back. So, as always, Hoops Tribe, thank you for tuning in, and let's talk hoops.
Let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops. What's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Let's talk hoops, let's talk. Let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops. What's the scoop? What's the scoop? What's the scoop? Let's talk hoops, let's talk. Let's talk hoops, let's